We're back with former Governor Charlie Crist. Governor, I wanted to ask you about your reputation as Chain Gang Charlie. That was something that you were always very proud of, something that you used to highlight a fair amount on your resume. I don't hear you using the phrase Chain Gang Charlie or talking about it. Are you afraid that reputation might turn off black voters?
I talk about it almost every Sunday when I go to churches around the state. And the context that I talk about it in is that when that came about, we were in the mid-90s. Florida was #1 in violent crime in America. Every 3 minutes and 45 seconds, there was another rape, another robbery, or another murder. And it struck me that that was wrong, and we had gained a reputation for it. You might even recall, I remember Governor Childs came to visit Miami at one point, and when he got out of his vehicle, he wore a bulletproof vest, and it was on CNN worldwide. So it seems to me that when you have a situation like that, you need to do things to reduce crime, to make our children safe in our schools, to make people safe in our communities, to stop drive-bys. And what I did was I sponsored a piece of legislation with Robert Wexler, as a matter of fact, that would have chain gangs, have outdoor work for people who were in prison that were nonviolent. The other thing I did was sponsor a bill called Stop Turning Out Prisoners, which would mandate that criminals would have to serve at least 85% of their sentence. Crime has gone down ever since those things went into effect. But I also understood when I got elected governor in 2006, I had been asked during the course of the campaign if I would support restoration of rights for former nonviolent felons, and I said that I would. And I was able to push it through in the spring of 2007. The reason I did it is I understand forgiveness is important too. So yeah, I'm not shy about being tough on crime. I want our kids and our families to be safe. But I also understand the importance of forgiveness.
When it comes to the issue of restoration of civil rights or voting issues, do you believe Governor Scott's policies are racist?
I don't know if they are or not. I just know that they're wrong. You know, he took away restoration of rights. You can't even apply for it for about 5 years now under Governor Scott, and that's just wrong. People need a chance, a second chance. And the fact that he wouldn't sign an executive order like I did to let people have more early voting hours, I did that in 2008. Rick Scott wouldn't do it in 2012, and we were the laughing stock of the country because nobody knew the results of Florida until like Thursday after the Tuesday election.
But, you know, if you're an African American sitting at home today watching this, do you believe there's any reason for them to vote for Rick Scott?
I don't.
Does he do anything for them?
Not that I can see.
Let me ask you about...
Well, let's talk about it. You know, they, like everybody else, have higher utility bills because of Rick Scott, because we have a Public Service Commission that's become the lapdogs of the utility industry. We all have higher property insurance rates, 25% higher insurance rates under Rick Scott. I call them Rick taxes. Under Rick Scott, as a result of the fact that he actually signed a bill. This is hard to believe. He actually signed a bill last year that says that the Office of Insurance Regulation cannot regulate insurance.
You've been criticized because that's not entirely accurate the way you're describing it. That does not have to do with windstorm insurance, correct?
I know it has to do with insurance.
It has to do with medical insurance because of the... But Governor, you have been criticized for... That's sort of a misstatement of the facts.
No, it's a fact. He signed a bill that says that.
Right, but it doesn't have anything to do with windstorm coverage.
All I know is your rates and everybody else's in Florida are 25% higher under Rick Scott than they were when I was your governor.
Let me ask you about one of your campaign donors, which has gotten some attention from the Scott administration. They say the Scott campaign says that you've taken about $90,000 from various strip club owners, including $40,000 from a gentleman who owns the Cheetah of Hollandale Beach up here, and they've called on you to return that money, if for no other reason than just the sexism involved of taking money from a strip club owner. Why have you not returned that money?
Because we got it from a management company.
But you know where the source of the money is from. Now that you're aware of the source of the money, do you feel that it's appropriate to return it?
No, I don't.
Okay, let's talk about women for a second. One of the issues I don't hear talked about very much is abortion and women's rights.
And it should be. And I'm glad you brought it up because I believe in a woman's right to choose. I believe that government should not intrude itself into the personal, private decisions that people make about their own life. Rick Scott, on the other hand, actually wants to overturn Roe versus Wade, as you know and I know, the law that gives a woman the right to choose. He doesn't think that, you know, they can make their own decisions about their body and their health care, and I think that's wrong. And I think that's very important to a lot of women watching this morning.
Let's go to education for a second.
Sure.
You've criticized the governor for his early cuts to education, but you must acknowledge he has put a fair amount of money back into education in more recent years, and he claims the amount of spending on per child spending, per student spending is higher now than it was when you left.
Yeah, well, he may claim that, but he's dead wrong. Per pupil funding under the Crist administration in real dollars was $1,200 more per student than Rick Scott has done. And let's think of the context of that. I was able to achieve that, $1,200 more per student during the Great Recession. Rick Scott is $1,200 less in real dollars, and they had almost a $3 billion surplus, which tells me one thing. We don't have a revenue problem in Tallahassee. We have a governor with a priorities problem. The priority needs to be our children, not giving huge tax breaks to big corporations that don't need it.
Should we be expanding the use of charter schools?
I don't think we should. I think what we need to do is reinvest in our public schools. I don't think we have even a conversation about expanding charter schools when public schools have been decimated so much by Rick Scott's cuts.
I want to talk about DCF for a second. You know, it seems as if the guiding policy that came in from Jeb through your term and into Scott's term was this idea of family unification, keeping the family together above all else. And that's led to very few children being removed from the homes, and it is also probably the reason why you had so many child deaths. Do you think family unification has been over-relied upon in DCF?
I think what we need to do at DCF, it is a tragic situation, what has happened there. Probably the most difficult agency for anybody to run. And so my approach has always been to try to get the best and the brightest in your administration to help you. And so I reached out across the aisle to Bob Butterworth, as you know, probably the greatest Attorney General Florida's ever had. And the reason I did it was because, number one, I knew he was smart, I knew he had great integrity, and I knew he cared about kids. And so by appointing people like that to run an agency in particular like DCF, I think is so important. What we've seen in the Scott administration, we've had, what, 4 education commissioners, we have Department of Corrections, it's a mess. They have all these, deaths and things are going on. DCF as well. But, what's important is you get good people. Having good government starts with getting good people, and I think that we were a lot better at getting good people in our administration than what we've seen out of Rick Scott's administration.
Governor Scott told me, you'll see in an interview that takes place a few minutes from now, he told me that he's ready to start writing checks into his own campaign. He's got a lot of money to be able to bankroll it. You seem very critical of the fact that he's wealthy. Is the fact that he's wealthy something that should be taken as a knock against him?
No, not at all. It's not the fact that he's wealthy that disturbs me. It's how he achieved that wealth. And you know it as well as I do. He ran a company that was end up having to pay the largest fine for Medicare fraud in the history of the United States of America. And then he wouldn't answer questions about that. I mean, he doesn't like answering questions, and you probably know that, Jim. But he pled the Fifth Amendment during that federal investigation 75 times so that he wouldn't have to go to jail.
All right, we got to end it there.
Okay.
Governor Crist, thank you very much for coming in. Just a few days left to the election.
Yes, sir.
All right.